you can go back to like 90s, dance music that driving rhythm is what hooks me anyway.
Welcome to Musing. Every once in a while, my brother George and I would have these conversations about music. Music is our passion, and it's a huge part of our lives, and we decided to share those conversations with you. So if you love music, sit back and enjoy this podcast. Okay, welcome back to Musing. Got my brother on the line.
How we doing?
Good. We are rounding the corner at the end of the position series. We're still debating on piano at this point.
When you say piano, it makes it sound bad. Keyboard, at least you can. I don't know. At least you can imagine at least Rush or something when you say keyboard. But
okay, so I guess we do have enough to talk about.
Well, I don't know about that either.
But on this one, we're
still debatable.
Yeah, it's true. It's still debatable. This one we are in rhythm guitar player, and I gotta say this with I don't know how you run it by people before we talk, but I run it by my wife, and she's like, well, why don't you just do guitarist? I'm like, it's different. She's like, no, it's not. I'm like, yes, it is.
It's very different. It's different. The same, but it's the same, but different.
Well, okay, so what does it mean to you then? What does rhythm guitar mean to you?
Rhythm guitar, it tends to stand out as obviously a secondary guitarist, but I also think lead guitarists, have to play rhythm.
Not
to an extent, but I also think the bass guitar can fill in
rhythm
most times. The double guitar. When I think rhythm guitar, I think two guitarists, and I think it's a different sound. It's a different level to the band that you can. Where the bass player doesn't have to fill in rhythm, the bass player can keep chugging along on the bass line, which we've already been over that, and the rhythm guitarist, can play that crunchy galloping beat, and then the lead guitarist can shred, which we'll get to that too, I guess. But
yeah, we will, but you brought up a really good point, and something I kind of wanted to touch on before we actually got started was that you would traditionally think that a band was two guitar players. That's where you have a rhythm and a lead guitar player.
Right. And
a band that doesn't has only a lead. But, logic says if there's going to be a rhythm in a song, the lead player still has to play, rhythm.
Right.
And, I was going to kind of jump to this later, but let's just do it now. The obvious one for me that stands out as somebody who could do both really well was Eddie Van Halen.
Yes.
Yeah, I went back and actually listened to a couple older songs to see, was I missing something? Or, man, a lot of the early stuff, and even, some of the stuff with Hagar as well, but a lot of the early stuff, there was some really good, rolling rhythms.
Unchained comes to mind when I think of Eddie Van Halen's rolling rhythm guitar. It's Unchained, because it's almost like a hybrid. It's like a lead rhythm that he kind of it's way down on the fretboard type of rhythm. It's strange, but that song always stuck out to me as a good example of that. Anyways, if we're starting with Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah, I think it's a good place to start because I think your assessment was correct. I think that if we're talking about a rhythm guitar player, 99 times out of 100, it's going to be a band that has two guitar players.
Sure.
And I think Van Halen was an amazing guitar player anyways, but to be able to do both, I think, is where some of those guys excel. And actually, there's a couple on the list of ones I wanted to talk about that kind of excelled at that as well. But that was the first one, and I figured since we were going that direction, I might as well just jump into it. But
yeah, some of the lists I read, I'm sure you caught Jimi Hendrix. A lot of lists. Well, a lot of lists gushed over his rhythm abilities.
I did see that, but I didn't feel the same way about him like I would Eddie Van Halen.
No, absolutely not. But that I think he most certainly has to fall into that category of,
Right.
one guitar player playing rhythm also, because, like the Wind Cries Mary and so on and so forth. There's a lot of, I can see it, but I mean, he was at the top of a lot of, lists. I just, Googled for reference, best, or list, best rock and roll rhythm guitarists. And, Jimi Hendrix was on most, along with Bo Diddley, which.
Yeah. Well, I actually put my list together and then went and did that to see if there was something, that I just slipped my mind.
I did too, and I was confused I was confused more by the list than it helped in this research category. But there were some like down towards the bottom of the list that I found. There was like some of them that I had, but.
But we always preface this podcast with, hey, this is kind of our opinions, and again, we didn't want to do this series as, hey, well, okay,
it's 100% opinion driven.
You keep doing that, but I actually do some research.
Well, yes, but it's at the end of the day,
you're right. It's still opinion. You're right.
It's what we like, and if you don't like it, email us at Music
right.
Feedback.
Tell us what you do like.
Right.
But I think. In looking at that, I didn't want to go top 10 lists, and I wanted to do I just wanted to talk about it. I didn't necessarily even want to, pick guys out and pick even in our wheelhouse, but I did. So we can just stop Malcolm Young and we're done. We can cut the podcast.
I was just going to say, I can't believe you didn't lead with that, but whatever.
Right. Well,
no, and rightfully so. I mean, again, we even briefly touched on this through Messenger, like in the middle of the week. Or earlier in the week, I guess it is, I don't know, Wednesday or Thursday. But anyway, no, there are rhythm guitarists, and there's Malcolm Young. People have tried to imitate, sound like, no. Well, AC/DC's core thing is their rhythm. I mean, that's just all there is. And go ahead.
No, I think you can attribute a lot of those bands from the late 60s, early 70s, even all the way up into the late 70s, of drawing a lot from blues and even some of the earlier rock, Elvis type stuff that had a lot of rhythm to it. But I do think they did it best, and it's interesting you'd say that about.
He.
Well,
this is what we talked about in Messenger. I mean, I'll clue people into some of the background stuff. The cleanliness with which Malcolm Young played cannot be. People try, but they try to. They try to force their style, and he was just. This is the best compliment. He was so vanilla. He was so technically perfect at rhythm guitar that people can't emulate that. They cannot make it sound like that because he did not stray from the formula. You know what I mean? It was like, this is it, and this is how it's going to roll. And Angus just did backflips off the kick drum and played guitar with his teeth and spun around and on the floor, and it worked. But Malcolm Young is a rock. He is a keystone rock in this conversation. He has to be.
No, he does. And I purposely, when I pulled up any list, I basically just skimmed over his because I knew we're both fans of him anyways.
Sure.
He was one of the influences on my guitar playing period, so I knew he was going to come up at some point. But I did actually stumble across a quote from him. The late Malcolm Young, because that's certainly a loss to the community.
Absolutely.
But the quote was, "Learning an instrument has to be natural. If you stop to think about playing, the feeling just goes."
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And that's kind of what you said about, we did send videos back and forth to some guy kind of going over some of the rhythms that he played in dedication. And it was like, they sound kind of like it.
Yeah, but it's not.
Just a little.
No, I mean the notes are are the same. The tone of the guy's guitar and using using an Gibson SG on that video you sent me is sacrilege. To do Malcolm Young tribute or doing Malcolm Young riffs on an SG on a Angus Young copy. No, sorry.
Yeah.
But anyway,
that's not the guitar he used at all.
No. And you can't, but even that guy it wasn't even sloppy. It was just that the guitar players that I see 99.99 to the nth degree % play with flair. Like they have to accentuate just so much. They have to change it to make it their own, in their mind. They cannot replicate that sound or that specific rhythm that Malcolm produced. And and I think people really want to. There's been some close challengers, but not really. I mean, he was head and shoulders above everybody else in rhythm guitar, and I think I'm just gonna end with that because.
That's what I said. We're 10 minutes in. We can just cut it right now, right?
Yeah,
Save
exactly.
everybody the next 35 minutes.
Exactly.
No, I think in leading with Eddie Van Halen, I think when I was looking at some of the guys that I liked and that wrote really good rhythms, it was a balance. It was a really big balance of, when I look at Jimi Hendrix, I think that a lot of his songs were tailored to his lead playing.
Yes.
So the rhythms they didn't feel as put together, or they didn't feel like he was
Certainly
writing a
not.
song.
Absolutely not.
And then if you look at people like Eddie Van Halen, who actually did a really good job of it, but then if you look at somebody like, I don't know, who could I throw out there that kind of gives me that feel that was a lead player? As much as I hate to say it, when you look at a band like Creed, and Mark Tremonti was writing some of a lot of the early stuff for them. It was a lot of single note and a lot of arpeggiation that was popular at the time. I mean, Pearl Jam, them, the late Pearl Jam, them, all the grunge stuff was using a lot of arpeggiation and stuff in that early 90s music.
Right.
It just didn't feel like rhythm. Like, it didn't feel like you were playing. I don't know. Do we limit it down to just saying you have to play chords to be rhythm? It can't be arpeggiations and it can't be single note stuff or.
No. But I think more single guitarists, I think a two guitar set, I don't want to say it like that. It almost has to be, but if you have two guitar players, you're either going to be tripping over each other, or one of you has to play like Malcolm Young and one of you has to play like Angus.
Okay, so then let's do Paul Stanley and Ace Frehley.
Paul Stanley is on my list.
So, I always think of the beginning of Detroit Rock City when I think of those two playing together. I really think Ace Frehley was a rhythm player in a lead position.
That's probably valid. I mean, he could shred when he wanted to, but but I think and by the way, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones version of Detroit Rock City is better than the original. Just saying.
Now I got to put it on there, so it'll be on the Spotify list. Hey, check out our Spotify list.
Yes, Spotify list. But no, Paul Stanley was on my list as, again, if you're going to say two guitar set, I mean, they pretty much coined the phrase, because they could play off each. I mean, they actually went back and forth. I mean, Stanley could play lead too.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And to me, I think that's even more valuable in a band like Kiss to have, two guitar players. But now when Ace Frehley left and you picked up, I mean, there's
Bruce Kulick. They had
Vinnie Vincent, Bruce Kulick. Who's that? Was Bruce Kulick the one that had the hands?
No, it was Eric Carr, but that was the drummer.
No. One of the guitar players had. I want to say it was Bruce Kulick had something surgery with his hand or something go wrong with his hand, muscular or something. Anyway, but I mean that accentuated that necessity for a strong rhythm guitarist, such as Paul Stanley.
Right. Somebody who could really play lead.
Right. If let's use Vinnie Vincent, since I think he was one of no, he was early 80s, 83 or something on that Undressed, or what was the one when they came out of the makeup?
We do this every single time.
I know. I don't do enough research on
Dress to Kill,
obscure 1983 Kiss albums. I'm sorry, but there is a level of when bands change lead guitarists or when they change rhythm guitarists. Do you notice more if they change a rhythm guitarist or a lead guitarist?
That's a good. Well, I mean, if you want to look at a big one, I mean, I always go back to this as mine. Izzy Stradlin was
Guns
actually
N'
on
Roses,
my list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Izzy Stradlin was on mine too.
He is probably another one of the influences on my guitar style playing. But you take him out and you put Bumblefoot in there or whatever his name was. What was his
Buckethead
name?
or
no, not Buckethead. There was somebody.
No, that was Limp Bizkit or something.
Yeah, exactly. But you replace him and you get, the second two albums put together, 1 and 2, and
right.
There was.
Nah. Now we've been over Guns N' Roses too.
Right.
But Izzy Stradlin, I would fight. Izzy Stradlin made Appetite for Destruction what it was.
Yep. There's again, if you listen to that album with headphones on, you can hear that they're on both sides.
It's a big difference.
Yeah,
I mean,
but they're playing off each other.
No,
and there's another good band that used those two guitar players the way it should have been.
Yeah.
Occasionally, Izzy would jump in and play, a little bit of a lead or just a couple single notes here and there, but it was just enough to complement that. So
yeah, I would have to agree.
So, how about two lead players? Can they play rhythm?
Well, one of them, you have to.
Well, they have to sometime, but I mean, does one of them have to be good at it?
I will give you an example. James Hetfield and Kirk Hammett.
Hetfield can't play lead.
Yes. Oh, yeah, he can.
Oh, stop.
Don't. All right. Look up. He can.
I'm throwing the flag, man. Seriously.
All right.
Okay.
He is most certainly a better rhythm guitarist than a lead guitarist, but I mean, I don't know. I would consider him just as much a lead guitarist as
much as I don't. But if you think of bands like Iron Maiden,
they don't count.
Or Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Well, Lynyrd Skynyrd, yes, but Iron Maiden doesn't count because they have even the bass player. I mean, all three are lead guitar players as far as I'm concerned. But
well, that's what I said. But I mean, I think the separation between Hetfield and Hammett is a lot further for me than it is for you. And I'll go out and look and see if I can find something where it shows him playing lead, but I wouldn't have put him in a lead category ever. I would never have even thought of putting him in the lead category. Like I would, those two guys in Maiden or the two guys in Skynyrd. I would take either one of them out and say, you're a lead guitar player.
Yeah. That's valid.
You're going to go into this band, you're going to play with a guy who's playing rhythm, and you're going to be the lead player. Right. I wouldn't feel that way with Hetfield.
That's true. That's true. I mean, that's true. I mean, he was on my list. Him and Scott Ian from Anthrax, as far as
he was actually at the top of my. He was nothing's taking away from Malcolm Young in my life. He's still the top rhythm guitar player for me. But when I first wrote down my list, the first thing I put down was Scott Ian.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that guy lives for rhythm guitar.
And he's obviously mentioned quite a few times that he was influenced by guitar players like Malcolm Young. In fact, he's even listed Malcolm Young and AC/DC as a lot of his influences. So.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, I know. Yeah. And if you've seen some of the videos, I follow him on Instagram and a couple other social media sites, and his he actually has his line of guitars. He had there's actually tutorials where he's teaching, using, did he play Gretsch? What did Malcolm play?
It was a double horned.
Was
it
it?
either a Gretsch or a Gibson?
Okay.
I think it was a Gibson double cut, like the Thunderbird type, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I was thinking it was Gretsch. Regardless, Scott Ian does a tutorial playing that style of guitar, doing AC/DC riffs, and it's pretty bananas.
Pretty scary.
Yeah, I dig it. It's pretty
They
cool.
still just weren't right, though, were they?
No, they're really close. They're a lot closer than that cat you sent me and Pete Pardo, the video you sent us earlier in the week. But yeah, it's valid. I mean, Scotty, and I'll give him a lot more credit for being a lot closer anyway, if nothing else. So.
Well, and again, he was extremely influenced by them, so it wasn't like it was a,
right,
far stretch.
I had two before we got too far away from the
Sure.
I had, we were talking single guitarists that also played rhythm and lead or whatever. One was Andy Summers from the Police. I mean, yeah, you almost had to double with Sting, as far as rhythm, a lot of times. And strangely enough, I'm kind of a pedestrian fan of the band, but The Edge from U2 does a lot of rhythm versus lead. I mean, he's almost a singular guitar playing, but they only play rhythm. I mean, he can play, solos and whatnot, but I've always just kind of sort of dug them. I never got into the political aspect of U2 or whatever, but
yeah,
it's
I wouldn't say that it's pick and choose for them, for me.
Oh yeah,
it's a here and there. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably and they've got an extensive catalog, but I would say there might be a dozen songs I could pick out of. I don't know. I'd say they have hundreds that I could actually really get behind. But
yeah, it was you were right on, Malcolm. It was a Gretsch, by the way.
Oh, cool. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I would say that. Excuse me. Of those two bands, I would say that if you think about the Police, that with those reggae beats are hard to play on guitar. I mean, you're playing on a lot of second beats and off beats than you're playing, and to put that together and still play some lead and some songs, that's a pretty good call on that one.
Yeah.
The Edge, it's still, if you listen to a lot of their stuff, it's still a lot of single note and arpeggiation here and there that he's kind of playing over top of.
Right.
So I think he's a good songwriter. But,
oh yeah. Yeah. Well, yes.
So, okay, I'm just gonna say it. Kurt Cobain.
Man, I think they definitely, Nirvana falls into my, if we're going to the 3-piece band thing. Kurt Cobain, man, this should have been your parting shot.
But think of the songs though. Think of the music. I mean, when you think about stuff like even go classic with "Smells Like Teen Spirit," it is a rhythm. It's 4 chords played in order.
Oh yeah.
And if you think of some of the other stuff,
so like is In Bloom and everything else.
Yeah, but again, he had that flair to it that it's hard to emulate. It's hard to be as rough as he was playing it and still make it sound good.
Yeah.
And, whether you like them or not, if you look back at the sound that they had, it was groundbreaking, but it was also, again, it was just him playing guitar. That was it. There was no lead.
Yeah.
He played a lead here and there, but the songs were catchy. They weren't just crappy songs with a decent singer and a good drummer and stuff. And
right.
It was still catchy songs. They were still songs that actually caught pretty good. So.
Right.
No, that was not my parting shot.
I actually have one for you today. Tonight.
No, that's not good.
Since we're in your wheelhouse, the equivalent to, I wouldn't say equivalent, I would say better like sounding would be Billy Corrigan.
For rhythm?
Yeah. I
would agree with that.
I mean, for that style, that kind of, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to say this like politely. Nirvana has never impressed me. I dig a lot of their music, but and I don't want to say I'm over it by any means. I mean, they're undeniable. But I could never figure out what was so great. And I mean, maybe this is where I struggle. Like the Led Zeppelins, we've been over this. I'm an average to above average fan of Led Zeppelin. I don't see what a lot of people see as groundbreaking. Yes, I know, he played guitar with a bow and on so on and so forth. And same with Nirvana. When grunge hit, to me, there were 10 other bands in that genre that were better than Nirvana.
Oh, and I could go right now to, Kim Thayil playing for Soundgarden is probably, in my case, a better rhythm player than Kurt Cobain. But
I would wager Chris Cornell is a better rhythm guitar player if you're going that route. If you're picking Soundgarden.
But I totally understand what you're saying about Zeppelin and Nirvana, and I think what you're trying to get at is that I think one of us has talked about it maybe in the last couple podcasts that it's not necessarily about how good they were.
It's that popularity contest,
but more at the right place at the right time.
Oh yeah.
More at the paradigm shift spot where
ground zero.
Where the right turn happens.
Yeah.
And Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, all those bands, were around the same era and had the same type of sound. But I think Led Zeppelin was not the first to do it, but definitely the first to make it extremely popular. And we talked about Tommy Lee putting drummer as rock star on the map. And, that's kind of the way I feel about bands like that and bands like Nirvana. It wasn't necessarily that they were that great or that they were doing something different than everybody else was at the time. In fact, like you said, there's probably Pearl Jam and Soundgarden were much more well put together songs, well put together bands. They had a lot of, I don't want to say more talent, but they had a lot of talent in those bands. But I think Nirvana was that right turn. It was the band that said, we're taking music this direction. And I think that's what Led Zeppelin said too, is we're taking music this direction.
Yeah.
And the other ones were doing it, but they just weren't doing it in your face. And that's, I do feel the same way you do. Although I love Led Zeppelin, it's one of those bands that I could sit and listen to the albums front and back. I do think they're equal with all the bands that were around at the same time. I don't think they were stand out they weren't writing anything different. They weren't writing anything, they weren't experimenting with different guitar tones, or they just had really talented people doing really talented things in their spots.
Oh, that's undeniable. No, I mean, I'm not even, it's not even a knock on Led Zeppelin or Nirvana or, Jimmy Page or Kurt Cobain or their talent level. It's just to me, when I, not to get too far off tangent, when we're talking rhythm guitars, I don't necessarily think guys like Kurt Cobain should even be in the conversation.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense, but I think it kind of goes back to where we started, though.
Right. I mean, there has to be a nod to single guitar players that have to pick up rhythm and guitar players that play mostly rhythm with just very little. But Kurt Cobain was sloppy. Kurt Cobain was a lot of feedback, a lot of just pounding on it, and a lot of, but it, like you said, it was catchy, and it hit, but his guitar playing wasn't, I don't think it was because of Kurt Cobain's guitar prowess. You know what I mean?
No, but you also have to look at it in two different ways too. You have to look at it as in the recording studio, and you have to look at it as in live performances, because If you watch a lot of Nirvana's live performances, he was all over the place.
Yeah.
There was times where his guitar wasn't even in tune for like the entire sets.
Right.
But if you look at the way the songs were written and the rhythms were written,
oh yeah,
on the albums, his I think he then fits into that rhythm guitar player, because I think that's what a rhythm guitar player does is
valid.
write the songs.
That's valid.
Is carries the songs through.
Right.
Yeah, if you've got a lead player that's writing songs, sometimes you don't get very good songs. Sometimes you get, in my opinion, Jimi Hendrix. You get a guy that's writing a lot of single note and a lot of, all over the board throughout the whole song, and occasionally he sings. I've never been a big Jimi Hendrix fan. I think he's an amazing guitar player. I think he had extremely white-hot moments in his career.
Right.
But I've never really been a huge fan of all of his music. One or two songs here and there, but Light My Fire is just not a song that I like at all.
Sorry, if you write a song backwards and play it backwards so it sounds right forward, that's impressive.
Experienced is I think it might even be made in my top 10 because that song is amazing.
No,
but
yeah, that's bananas. That's for another conversation. But
then it brings up people like Billy Joe from Green Day.
Why do you keep bringing up Green Day? Stop bringing up Green Day.
Because some people actually like Green Day. I
don't know anybody besides you. No, I'm just kidding.
5 people out there really like Green Day.
They sold a ton of albums, so somebody does. I know I have to give you grief about it.
15 people like Green Day. But if you, again, I think that he is one of those people that can write songs really well as a rhythm player. But if you see them live, I've seen a couple clips of them live, and it's like, wow, is he really playing guitar, or is it just there in front of him and he's singing and moving his fingers?
Yeah.
It doesn't have any feel to it live, but they wrote some really catchy songs.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I mean that falls in, obviously the 3-piece, the single guitar player deal. I think almost any band, I mean, you have to have, if there's no rhythm to a song, it's not a song, right? I mean, that's kind of how music works.
Well, but does the bass fill in on that? That's kind of, if you go back to Jimi Hendrix, a lot of those songs that I was, if you think of Let Me Stand Next to You, Fire, if you think of that's a lot of bass.
But we've been over this. Name Jimi Hendrix bass player.
Exactly, but we're all bass players. We're in the rhythm.
Right.
So.
Well, that's what I mean. If you don't have a second guitar, if you don't have a second guitar playing, if you don't have a second guitarist,
right?
The bass, you have to have either one or the other. You have to have 2 guitars or 2 guitars of some sort. So there has to be a rhythm guitarist or a bass guitarist.
But what if you don't need lead? I mean, if you listen to a lot of Green Day's songs, there's not a lot of lead in them. If you listen to a lot of Nirvana songs, there's not a lot of lead in them.
Right. If you listen to a lot of Police songs, there's not a lot of lead in.
Yeah. You go back to the Misfits, there's not a lot of lead in it. It's a really good rhythms and really good fast.
Joey Ramone was on one of those rhythm guitarist lists.
Yeah. I mean, there's no lead player needed in those songs.
Maybe it was Johnny Ramone.
Sort of not needed. I mean, how do you feel about having songs with no lead in it?
I mean, it depends on the song. I'm okay with it. I don't need a guitar shred, a shredding solo with, but at the same time, I can listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan where the whole flipping song's almost a guitar solo. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Again, you have to have a rhythm or it's not a song. I mean, isn't that what music is? Yep. It's a rhythm. It's a sound repeated enough times where it makes sense, sort of.
There's a reason there's 2 numbers on the left-hand side, one on top of the other. Right. To keep things in beat and have a rhythm. But
right.
I don't know. I don't know. You're talking about fundamentals at that point, but.
Well, but I mean, I know I'm breaking it down to molecules now, but that's what I'm talking about. If there's no,
Philosophical talk with Brother George.
Right. I mean, I've seen you can put like soda in a box cake mix, and it comes out and it tastes like cake. You don't have to put eggs in it. So you can leave the eggs out and still get a cake. So if you leave the rhythm guitarist out, do you still have music?
That is the weirdest correlation I've ever heard in my entire life to music.
Well, I can't express it any other way. I mean,
no, I get it.
You can't if you take a lead guitarist out, you can still have music. If you take a rhythm guitarist out, you can still have music, but you still have to have rhythm. You still have to have a bass line or at least drums, something to keep time, or it's
right.
I mean, even just a single acoustic guitar has a rhythm to it. I mean, a song has to have a rhythm to it.
Well,
so we're talking about rhythm. Well, any song, I mean, even Happy Birthday has a rhythm to it.
Well, but let's also separate those two things. Hit song or popular song and song you like. I mean, I know those are two different things. You mentioned Stevie Ray Vaughan earlier.
Right.
I'm not a Stevie Ray Vaughan fan musically. I think he's an amazing guitar player, and I think, again, I feel about him the same way I do about Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
I think that those musicians are amazing and have amazing talent. But for me, that's not the type of song I want to listen to. The type of song I want to listen to is where Malcolm Young is playing the notes that are behind For Those About to Rock. You know, that little high-end stuff that comes in it For Those About to Rock,
yes.
That's Angus.
Yes.
That next line that comes in
yes.
where you can hear the low-end guitar and it starts carrying the song like it's moving on a train tracks,
yes.
That's what I want to hear
yes.
in my music.
Yes. And I think that's the basis of rock and roll. It's that driving rhythm that sucks us in. And I think that's what this conversation is pretty much all about. It's about that rhythm. That's what hooks us. That's what hooks rock and roll guys. That's why even like you can go back to like 90s, dance music that driving rhythm is what hooks me anyway. That's why, and for me, the faster and the heavier, the better. And it gets to a point like groups like Helmet, groups like I'm drawing a blank. Pantera, but groups like Anthrax, groups like Megadeth,
Metallica,
Slayer, Lamb of God, that just got that really heavy driving rhythm. And for me, it transitions to, there are songs that I love for the lyrics. There are songs I love when they break them down to an acoustic set and you can really feel what the musician's getting at. And then there are songs that I could not care less what they're saying. There's Lamb of God has a song called Foot to the Throat. Couldn't care less what the guy, I know there is a vocal track in it. Couldn't care less. Does not matter. The music part of that is what gets me from A to B. And, if something's going wrong at work or, one of those days, put that on and I feel better about myself type of stuff. It's that driving rhythm, I think, that drives us, whether it's Malcolm Young or whether it's, Dimebag Darrell. There's a level of that crunchy rhythm, that galloping rhythm and it doesn't have to be fast, but it's just that, chunk that we as rock and roll guys, I think it validates us. That's what we're looking for is the rhythm. And I think that's what pushed you into rhythm guitar, or guitar specifically, rhythm guitar, was Izzy Stradlin, was, Whole Lotta Rosie, was, that vibe. And for me, the first Anthrax song I ever heard was I'm the Law. And it's still one of my favorite riffs through an entire song. It's just it's just this, again, Scott Ian, and it just rips your face off the whole way through. It's the same thing, and it's just repeated over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, for me, that song is Madhouse.
Okay, pick one. That's what I mean. Pick an AC/DC song. If you want blood, for me, is AC/DC, like, and High Voltage. The actual song High Voltage.
It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, man.
Pick one.
That rhythm goes through that entire song just
and it gives you goosebumps, and you want to bang your head, and you want to put your fist in the air, and you want to put the horns up and just get after it. That's what rhythm guitar does for me.
So my parting shot is not a musician or a band tonight.
All right, well, let me give you mine first then.
Right, that's what I was going to say. So I'll let you lead into it because I want to carry that vibe you just had right there for a second, but go ahead and tell me what yours was.
Okay, my curveball was I listened to it a lot when I was in high school, and I'm not going to say why, but Bob Marley, as far as rhythm guitarists.
Yeah, I'd say
you mentioned it. You started to mention it, and I actually chuckled when you said the reggae riffs in the Police.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, to link that to that, and I think when you look at those guys that play, coming from a rhythm player, and I was actually in a band where I was the guitar player. I was the rhythm, I was the lead. I didn't play much lead because it's just my style. But to look at those guys when they, even the ska bands and punk bands, where they're playing on the and instead of the one, when they're doing one and two and, it's so hard to do that because the drum's on one,
right? And
I'm playing guitar on and. To keep that up, and to not only that, but man, Marley had a feel when he sang.
Oh yeah,
and it kind of had the same idea as Malcolm Young, but just in different genre of music. But
exactly. Yeah,
I would certainly. That's not even a party shot for me. I would wholeheartedly agree with that. That's
the cleanliness. Well, I mean, just the fact that it's reggae, and we very rarely delve. We've delved into some other genres, but reggae is not one we've touched on much. But
I think a lot of ska pulls from that. Some punk pulls from that, and I think I gain a respect for that because ska and punk are one of those. I don't want to say guilty pleasures, but
I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, I'm not like I don't seek it out, but when it's on, I will wholeheartedly turn it up. Yeah. It's on. I'm listening to it.
I'm actually geeked. The Mighty Mighty Boss Tones are coming in concert in April, so I'm going to that. I'm actually geeked. So
like for me, I'd love to see Dropkick Murphys live just once. I'd like to go see him live.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you better start drinking Jameson now then.
Yeah, I know. So somebody on my list that didn't get mentioned before I give you the parting shot was Dave Grohl. As a rhythm guitar player.
Yeah.
Again, songwriting. I look at that and say, I'm not a huge Foo Fighters fan, but they've had a lot of hit songs, and a lot of them
been
written by him.
For a long time, yeah.
Yep. And a lot of those rolling rhythms in his songs were written by him. So
yeah.
So I want to leave a couple minutes for this. So where is rhythm guitar now?
Non-existent.
But why?
It doesn't have to be. Now everything is auto-tuned. Everything is pre-programmed. Sort of, but it is.
But step back and look at some of the bands that are making rock today. Like Lydia. Why am I blanking on the name?
Highly Suspect.
Highly Suspect. Royal Blood. I mean, I know they're using bass, but bands like that are making rock now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other bands out there, but even bands like Shinedown are still putting stuff out. Disturbed's still putting stuff out. It's not popular. It's not hitting anywhere. It's not getting anywhere. And even if you listen to Greta Van Fleet, they kind of carried that that Zeppelin feel to where it's more a lot of single note stuff and more kind of weaving vocals and drums through the song more than it is the rhythm.
Yeah.
But why is it because dance and hip hop and rap has really kind of taken the limelight that we're just not hearing it? Or are you not hearing it on any of the rock songs at all that are out? I assume you listen to the radio. I know your radio stations down there are a lot
Yeah.
more geared towards the older stuff. But up here, I flip on the station and I hear new rock songs all the time, but I don't hear those rhythms like you heard in the 70s, 80s, 90s, even the early 2000s. A lot of those.
We've been over this. I think it's the attention span. You can't keep, and I mean, this sounds so bad, but you can't keep people's attention for 4 minutes anymore. It's got to be a 2.5, 3 minute song to get any airplay even. And even then they have to squeeze it between, Freebird and Don't Stop Believin'. Even on contemporary rock radio, and I'm calling them out on our podcast, 98 Rock in Tampa Bay are basically the only contemporary rock radio station in the greater Tampa Bay area. They don't play new music. They'll play 1 or 2 new songs, and the rest of it, I mean, Wanted Dead or Alive and Home Sweet Home from Motley Crue are still in heavy rotation on contemporary rock radio in Tampa Bay.
But again, maybe that's why. Maybe because rock today doesn't have a rhythm anymore. Maybe it's because again, like I said, if I turn those songs on, most of them feel a little more pop than they feel rock anyways.
Yeah, but you mentioned Greta Van Fleet. That song Highway Tune or Highway, it's not Highway Star, that's Deep Purple. Highway Tune, I think it is. That's 100% rhythm-based rock and roll.
But even up here, I don't hear that song. I heard it like the 2 or 3 weeks when it came out, and I haven't heard it since. They're still back to playing either 1978, Eagles,
right,
or a new song that sounds like, and I'm not putting them down because I actually like Imagine Dragons, but as rock. And there's no rhythm guitar. There's no rhythm, other than just the beat.
It's all techno and auto-tune crap.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean.
Well, so does that perpetuate the continuation of the 70s, 80s rock getting played ad nauseum on the radio at this point?
We still need to have that conversation about is radio dead.
I was just going to say, so Paul Stanley was right, is what we're saying.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's
really,
it's been over. I give my phone a break and my data plan a break and listen to the radio in my car to and from work. I listen to Pandora, I plug my phone in and listen to Pandora 99% of the time at work now. But when I have 10 presets in my car, and they're all, I shouldn't say all, they're either rock or they're 70s and 80s or they're classic rock or they're, the best of 80s and more, and we have an alternative rock station that, I don't even have words for what's being forced on us as alternative. You can't see me using air quotes. Rock. That word it's almost become a bad word. It's almost become like it almost is, but it almost become a 4-letter word where it's almost a bad word. Like you don't want to be labeled rock because guys like us that listen to Led Zeppelin and AC/DC, like Imagine Dragons is not rock. They're a good band, but they're not rock. You get this really intense, it brings up emotions like you want to hear Greta Van Fleet, and dang it, guys, just embrace that Led Zeppelin thing because I've listened to 10 of your songs now and just get a hug from Robert Plant or something because you guys are there. Regardless of that, there's got to be a level of calling a spade a shovel where you're not. Imagine Dragons are a decent band. You are not rock and roll. Sorry, you're not. Next, Greta Van Fleet, you are rock and roll. Next, there needs to be a dividing line. There's too many blurred lines anymore where we don't even know what, the Grammys.
Hold on.
Grammys.
Before you go on, that was my last stop was I sat through 2/3 of it.
And you're
maybe
a better human than I am, because there's no possible way I would even turn the channel towards that.
Look, I am fine.
Still a music fan, but
I'm fine with other genres of music being out there. And that kid, her, that played was phenomenal. She was an amazing writer, an amazing musician. But where is the rock? You're right. It's gone. There is nothing out there that resembles anything that's been over the last 5 decades.
no.
Do I want to go back that far?
Sure.
I mean, what does that put it at? We're 69?
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing. There was nothing in the first 2.5 hours of the Grammys that had any resemblance to. I mean, it was funny too. If Misty and I brought, I told her, I said, "Do you remember when Metallica lost the Grammys? Do you remember who they lost it to?" She's like, "I have no idea. And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to tell you, but think back. That was Metallica playing at the Grammys.
Yeah.
And possibly, well, they didn't win, but trying to win the Grammys. There was nothing.
It was the Black Album after all. So anyway.
I know. Well, that's true. No, I thought that was one.
Jab. No.
They played one at the Grammys.
Yeah, but the Black Album was, they played
one. Oh, it was
one,
up for the, okay.
Yeah, but the Black Album was, because they didn't want to play anything off the Black Album.
So, but there was nothing on there for 2.5 hours.
Nothing. You just said
Good.
50 years ago, it's 1969. So try to think about, like, what's in 1960, like, let's say, like, The Who, My Generation, that's probably right in that wheel, that 68, 9, 70 somewhere, I'm almost positive.
Yeah.
So you're going to put Imagine Dragons as rock versus The Who's My Generation.
Hold on, I never said they were rock. I'm just saying.
No, the Grammys did.
Oh, well, right. You're absolutely correct. I don't. It just
talk about
baffles
throwing
me.
a challenge flag. That's not even in this. That's not even the same genre. That's not.
But I guess if I have to admit to it, if you've got to claw rock from my dead hands at this point, then why? What do I have? Why should I even bother writing music at this point?
The people I deal with in my inner circle, a lot of them aren't necessarily hardcore rock and roll people. But second to that, the ones that are still clutching to they're white knuckled, clinched to Whole Lotta Rosie or Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin. They're not going to let go of that. They're still, and that's why Greta Van Fleet, anybody that I've talked to that has heard them or I play them for them, their mouths hang open. Like, that's what we've been waiting for. Really? I disagree, because I want somebody to make rock that doesn't sound super close to Led Zeppelin.
But take what I just said to the nth degree.
Right.
Why would any bands out there want to do it? Because nobody that listens to new music cares.
Because their dads are the white knuckled ones, or they're whatever, still holding on to that. You can start a band and be famous and rich and famous. And I think that's where we're at right now. It's all about the rich and famous. It's all about the popularity. It's all about the money. It's all about the show. It's not about the substance anymore. And it hasn't been for a long time. I think the grunge era, early 2000s, was the swan song, for lack of a better pun, to rock. You've got Metallica doing country.
Well, but
at this point,
I mean, you had
joking.
I wish I was. You had the whole phase of like Stained and Disturbed, and
that new metal scene is average or below.
Right, but it was still what we considered rock. It was still a good rhythm, and if you listen to even some of the more recent stuff by is Kroger still singing with Nickelback?
Yeah.
Yeah, like even the last couple songs they put out are still considered rock, but nobody cares. But that whole, you still had that still early 2000s, which was pretty decent, but I'd say past 2005 or 6, it's just took a nosedive.
That's what I said. The early 2000s was a swan song.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I said. It was, because we've ushered in an era where people's feelings get hurt if you, all right, if you walk into right here is the best possible example. I'm going to cut it and dry and tie a big bow around it for you right now.
Good, because I'm already depressed, so we need to end this pretty quick. So.
Last Tuesday, my family and I went to a National League hockey game. And in between, like when the play stops, they'll play.
Yep.
They'll play songs.
Yep.
They played Du Hast by Rammstein. And I stood up and I was like, yeah, finally. And everybody's like, when they played Kelly Clarkson, everybody's like, hey, clapping their hands and everything was cool. And Du Hast won, and I stood up like a fool. I'm like, yeah, finally some real music. And everybody, I could have had 3 heads. I might as well have had 3 heads.
Did they tar and feather you?
Almost, because that's the difference. It's the setting. You're at a sporting event. You want to be pumped up. I don't want to listen to Kelly Clarkson. If Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock come on, It Takes Two in between, when play stops, I can get on board with that. You want to be pumped up. But when something like Du Hast comes on, I was like, what are they doing? This is awesome. But then they'll play, it doesn't matter. It's the setting, because you can't. And it's you talk about driving rhythms. Du Hast is probably second to none on my list. Maybe Party Hard by Andrew WK would be a close second.
But hold on. Can we maybe mark him as the end of rock?
What happened to Andrew WK?
I don't know. Well, there's a lot of things. You just look him up on Wikipedia, you'll find out what happened.
No, I know, but man, that whole album that I Get Wet, was that the name of the album?
Yeah, she is beautiful as.
That's a brilliant song.
But I could just listen to that song nonstop.
Yeah, but Party Hard, I think actually forces its way out of the speakers and punches you in the face. But anyway, there's a level of it's your audience. These people are so offended by everything now that if if it's not dumbed down and pleasing to the ear and the palate and if they're not pretty to look at when they're singing, it's non-existent. We can't have that. That's why Kiss is a joke now. That's why the hair bands are a joke now. That's why, Slipknot wears masks, because it's a joke. That, they don't want to be, if you're not presentable, then you have to stand out some other way. And rock in and of itself is almost ashamed to stand out anymore. They just want to blend in and sell albums or whatever and get on with their life. But there's nothing, the path is already, or whatever, the forge is already hot. Like bands like Foo Fighters are riding off Nirvana's coattails, and guys like Greta Van Fleet are riding off Led Zeppelin's coattails even years later. But Imagine Dragons, who's going to ride off those coattails and make, that's what people are being told is rock now, and people believe a lot of stuff that they're being told, unfortunately.
Well, I'm officially putting the cap on it.
All right.
It is Wet, 2001, end of rock, right there.
All right, sold.
Done. We're done.
Make sure you put She Is Beautiful on the Spotify list too.
Well, good conversation, brother. We
Definitely.
did get off on a tangent, but that's what we're supposed to do. And we're getting close to the end of that series, and we got a couple in the can coming up after that. But we want to hear from you guys. Send us some stuff, man. Send us what you want to hear. We know our genre, but we'll look up some stuff in your genre if we. No, we won't. Never mind. Make sure it's rock.
Yeah, if it's reggae, maybe, but not country.
Maybe some ska or punk.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm down for some ska and punk.
Either way, we'll probably do either lead or that elusive piano next, and kind of seal it up, and then we'll move on to something else. Then.
Yeah, but musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com, and I took over the Instagram account, and it's really good. Look us up at Music Musing on Instagram, Jorge's13 on Instagram, In Contrast on Instagram, and George and Craig Seibert on Facebook, else. And other social media sites. So check it out. Get involved. Hit us up. Please. And download some podcasts, man. Check it out. It's worth listening to.
And I will tell you, I put this out on social media, but I've got a whole handful of stickers in front of me. And if you guys leave a review on any of the platforms you listen to, iTunes or Google Play or Stitch or whatever, just take a picture of it, send it to me, send me an email to musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com, and I'll send you guys a sticker. It won't cost you a dime. Send me your address. I'll send it to you.
Sweet.
We're out, brother. I'll catch up to you later.
All right. Peace out.
That's it. Yep. See ya.
See ya.
We want to talk to you about music, so reach out to us at musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com.
You can also find us on most social media sites by searching Music Musing or George or Craig Seibert, Sybert.
And you can also find us on Twitter as musicmusing_ as well.
Thank you for listening to this Music Musing podcast.